Sorry, big sis, not only did I snag a husband, but I also got a home. Ha, I'm grateful. My sister beamed as she uttered those devilish words, but her smile wouldn't last for long. The dream family home and the blissful life I had longed for were ripped away by my own sister. My foolish husband, who abandoned his family for her, will find no happiness in his future. For the sake of my daughter, I decided to stand up and face this challenge head on. My name is Sarah, 33 years old. My husband, Ted, is 35, and our daughter, Maya, is about to turn 5. Ted and I met at work. Though we were in different departments, we grew close through mutual friends and eventually got married. Recently, something wonderful happened. Despite juggling work, childcare, and housework, we finally acquired the house we had always dreamed of. We painstakingly chose the design and decorations together, even picking out the color for Maya's room. Our whole family was excited to start life in our new home. But then, that incident happened. Wow, it's spacious and beautiful, said my identical twin sister, Yumi, during a sudden visit. Although Yumi and I look alike, our personalities couldn't be more different. She's outgoing and adapts to everything with ease, while I'm shy and prefer reading books to socializing. Back in school, she used to bring her friends to my classroom just to mock me. You two look alike, but you're so different. Yumi is cuter, right? Her friends would say, glancing at me, the plain one with thick glasses. Yumi would happily respond, it's like I got all the good features at birth. Sorry, big sis. It's a past I'd rather forget. That's why we hardly spoke after becoming adults. I hadn't even told her about the new house, yet here she was, unexpectedly excited. I heard from Mom that you built a house, so I wanted to give you a housewarming gift. That's why I asked for your address, she said. What housewarming gift? I thought, bewildered. As if reading my mind, Yumi answered with a laugh, oh, of course, that's a lie. Why would I bother giving you something like that? At home or school, she would call me sister, but when we were alone, she always referred to me as you. Her meanness was unchanged, making me sigh. Well then, since the tour is over, could you leave? My husband and daughter will be back soon, and I need to prepare lunch. Today was a holiday, and my husband and daughter were due back from playing in the nearby park. We plan to have lunch together as a family. Oh, then I'll wait. I'll have lunch with you and then leave, Yumi said. Lunch together? Impossible. Absolutely impossible, I thought. I only prepared enough for the three of us. Give me your share then. You are the big sister, after all, she said shamelessly. Even after turning 30, she still referred to herself as the little sister, making vulgar remarks that left me speechless. After all, I was only born a few minutes earlier than her. I'm home, Maya's voice echoed as she opened the living room door. My daughter, accompanied by my husband, walked in and was surprised to see her aunt. She looks just like Mom, Maya said, not knowing her aunt was my twin. My sister greeted them with a friendly smile and a warm hello. I'm Yumi, the twin sister. Nice to meet you, Ted. Sorry to intrude, Yumi added. Ted, having heard about my sister, was surprised to see her there but seemed pleased. Yumi, with her long eyelashes, distinct colored eyes, and perfect makeup, looked younger than her actual age. Her hair was curled, and she dressed to accentuate her figure. Meanwhile, I had spent the weekend in pajamas, my hair casually tied up and messy, with a tired face, no makeup, and thick glasses. It was clear that my sister appeared more beautiful and charming. Unable to assert myself in front of Maya, we ended up having lunch together. My sister ignored Maya, kept talking to Ted, and laughed loudly. Ted, you're so funny and stylish. Handsome too. You must be popular. So, why with my sister? She said, looking back and forth between Ted and me. My husband is sociable, fashionable, and popular at work with a bright personality. He was naive in relationships as I was his first, so he was easily deceived by my sister. No, not at all. I'm not popular. Why, you're the cute and popular one, Ted stammered. What a high school-like exchange. It was unpleasant. My much-anticipated holiday turned into a series of tolerances. Oh me, I'm not popular at all. I always attract weird guys, Yumi said. I recently broke up with my boyfriend, who I had been living with. He was short-tempered, and we fought a lot. I'm thinking of moving out since it's too big for just me and the rent is high. She glanced at me with a sly grin. Hey, you have a spare room here, right? Can I stay for a bit, just until I find a new place? No way? I was astounded by her audacity. What are you saying? Of course, that's out of the question. Don't just come here and make unreasonable demands. I couldn't hold back any longer. We can't just let this spiral out of control, I interjected, my voice tinged with desperation. We should help in difficult times, but this isn't right. She showed up out of nowhere, met my family for the first time, and now expects to stay over? Absolutely not. Once dinner is over, she needs to go home immediately. My anger simmered as I pushed away from the table and left the room. Yumi, unfazed, smiled and said, "Well, we can get to know each other better from now on. After a few visits, we'll become friends. I'll come by again." I could barely believe my ears. The thought of her returning felt like a cruel joke. Once she finally left, I turned to Ted, my frustration boiling over. "Why did you say she could stay? I've told you before, she doesn't understand boundaries. If we're kind to her, she'll take advantage and never leave. She won't help with anything and will expect to stay here for free." Ted shrugged. "She didn't seem that bad. She's bright and energetic, maybe even nice." His words felt like a betrayal, and his enchanted demeanor only fueled my anger. Nice? How can someone who asks to stay in our home the first time they meet be a nice person? If she shows up when I'm not here, do not let her in, I demanded, my voice firm. Ted nodded, but his expression was dismissive. Okay, calm down. It's scary how jealous women can be, even sisters." He said this as if I were overreacting, and I could hardly believe it. "Jealous? What are you talking about? She's been bullying me since we were kids. It's not complex, it's the truth. She always took my things, my toys, my clothes, everything. I've always been at her mercy." But instead of sympathy, Ted just gave me a bored and turned away. Disappointment washed over me. I never expected him to defend her over me. He lay down on the bed, indifferent, and I sighed, feeling the weight of his indifference. As the days passed, I buried myself in work, catching up on everything I'd missed during the move. My parents and Ted helped with Maya's daycare, which was a relief, but I still felt guilty for not being there as much as I wanted. I tried to make up for it on my days off, but Ted always seemed to have errands to run, leaving little time for the three of us to be together. One night, I came home exhausted from overtime and was greeted by an unwelcome voice. "Welcome back, big sister," Yumi said, her voice dripping with mockery. She was sitting in my living room, boldly drinking despite the promise not to let her in. It was 9 p.m., and my daughter was already asleep. The sight of Yumi, red-faced and clearly drunk, sent a wave of irritation through me. The table was a mess of beer, wine, and snacks. "Why are you here?" I demanded. "I told you I'd come back, didn't I? Besides, is it really okay to leave your husband and child alone until this late?" Yumi replied, feeding concern. Ted chimed in. "Her ex-boyfriend has been showing up at her place. Yumi's scared to go home." "Then why not go back to our parents' house?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. "No way. They'll just lecture me about getting a job and straightening out my life. I like it here, and Ted is here," Yumi said, gazing at my husband with a look that made my skin crawl. Ted, tipsy and oblivious, and pleased by her attention. "Fine. If you're going to sleep in the living room, at least clean up afterward. I'm going to take a bath and go to bed," I said, too exhausted to fight anymore. As I checked on Maya, who was sleeping peacefully, the sounds of laughter from the living room only deepened my irritation. I couldn't believe how foolish and distasteful it was to see my sister cozying up to my husband and him enjoying the attention in front of his own wife. I ran into one of Ted's colleagues in the bathroom. "Is Ted okay?" they asked. He mentioned he was taking a sick day this morning. Confused, I returned to the house. The living room was a mess, crumpled blankets and empty cups scattered around. And Yumi was sprawled on the sofa, sound asleep. Ted hadn't emerged from his room, which I assumed meant he was hungover from drinking too much. I took Maya to daycare and headed to work, feeling uneasy. At work, I made an excuse for my sudden day off. "Thanks for your concern. Sorry for taking the day off so abruptly," I said. The colleague responded, "It's okay, but it's odd. Ted's been taking a lot of days off lately and making more mistakes." That unsettling feeling from the previous night lingered. I decided to leave work early to check on things at home. As I approached, I steeled myself for what I might find. Quietly opening the front door, I walked into the living room and, just as I feared, found Ted and Yumi sitting closely on the sofa. Ted had his arms wrapped around her while they watched TV. Fury bubbled inside me. I flung open the door. "Sarah," Ted exclaimed, rising in surprise. Yumi, on the other hand, sat there with a smirk, clearly pleased with the scene. "Why are you here?" she asked, feigning innocence. "I heard you were sick, so I came back, worried. I'd also heard you've been taking a lot of days off lately. Are you having an affair with my sister while I've been working hard at covering for you? All those weekends you said you had plans. Was it to meet her?" Ted, looking panicked, raised his voice in defense. "Do you have any proof of us meeting? I hate your logical and critical attitude." "Proof," I shot back. "I saw you hugging each other just now. That's what I can't stand about you, always looking down on me. From now on, you and Yumi can live here together, and I want you to leave." Ted's face twisted in frustration. "You're always busy, never paying attention to me. You don't even bother with makeup anymore, and you don't see me as a man. Yumi recognizes me as a man. She listens to me and compliments me." Yumi, leaning on Ted's arm, added with a smirk, "It's because you don't appreciate your husband. He built such a beautiful house for you and treats you kindly, yet you're always preoccupied with work or the kids." Their words stung. It seemed that ever since Yumi arrived, Ted had been taking more time off and becoming more involved with her, neglecting his family in the process. I was sickened by their disregard for our home and children. "But I'm glad you came back early," Yumi said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "I had planned to have a serious talk tonight. My lease was nearly up and I intended to move my things over tomorrow. But my self-centered sister had other plans." "Sorry, sis," she said with a carefree smile. "Looks like I'll be taking your husband and your house." Her lack of remorse was infuriating. Ted continued with his excuses. "I wanted Maya to live with us too, but Yumi is scared of suddenly becoming a mother, so you'll have to look after her for a while." His priorities were clear. He valued his own happiness over mine and our daughters. "I understand," I replied, my voice cold as I headed upstairs, craving solitude. My sister's laughter echoed behind me, further fueling my anger. But hearing my daughter's name sharpened my focus. I needed to fight for her. Taking a deep breath, I composed myself and reached out to someone on my phone. It was time to show that I was no longer the person I used to be. 30 minutes later, the intercom buzzed. "Mom, Dad, why are you here?" I was taken aback to see my stern-faced parents at the front door. Ted and Yumi looked shocked as they stood in front of them. My sister, furious, confronted me. "Did you tell Mom and Dad? How childish to run to them as an adult." "Be quiet," I snapped back, trying to maintain my composure. "What are you two doing?" my father asked, his usually calm demeanor replaced with a formidable anger. "We're discussing a divorce," my sister retorted. "This has nothing to do with you." "Nothing to do with us?" my father said, his voice rising. "Our granddaughter's husband is having an affair with her own sister. We're absolutely involved." "What are you going to do about this, Ted?" my father demanded. Ted fumbled for words. Oh, well, Ted, I'm disappointed in you," my father said sharply. "I thought you were a reliable man who would protect Sarah, but here you are, engaged in such foolishness." Ted's surprise was evident, only reacting after my sister nudged him with her elbow. "I'm sorry, but this is a matter between husband and wife," Ted said, sweating. "It's not so much about who's at fault, but that our relationship just wasn't working out." "Are you saying it's my fault?" I asked incredulously. "We never had these issues before Yumi came along. If that were the case, we wouldn't have built this house." "That's your opinion," Ted retorted. "You got promoted, pretended to be busy, neglected housework and childcare, and didn't even bother with makeup. You didn't respect me as your husband. Aren't you ashamed?" "So you didn't like that I got promoted?" I shot back. "My promotion and maternity leave hurt your pride, so you pretended to be calm and helped with housework and childcare to hide your bruised ego. You're petty. Respecting a husband doesn't mean you have to hold back your own success." "You've seen what Sarah is like," Ted said. "She's hardworking and doesn't wear makeup." My mother tried to intervene. "I hardly wore makeup even before marriage. Where is the Ted who used to love and adore me?" "No," Ted said firmly. "Parents have no right to interfere in a couple's affairs. Please go home and take Sarah with you." My sister coldly handed me the divorce papers. "Ted has already prepared the divorce papers. Just respond to them as soon as possible. I'll send the rest of your stuff later." "How could you, Yumi?" my mother asked, trying to stop her. "Please, let us be," my sister said, pushing us out of the house. "We're getting divorced, aren't we?" I turned to Ted. "Is this really happening?" He nodded, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Yes, he said. You're so clueless, I said, feeling the weight of the situation. I'm keeping the house since it's in my name, I said firmly. I'll pay child support, but let's finalize the divorce. However, there's one more thing. If we're getting divorced and I'm leaving, you'll need to repay the $400,000 my parents loaned us for the house. I held up the loan agreement, watching their faces turn pale. When we bought the house, we had paid $100,000 from our savings, with my parents covering the remaining $400,000. The loan agreement was already in place, and it was a better deal than a traditional loan. My parents had suggested this arrangement, and we had both been grateful. But since I'll be staying in the house, it's only fair that you repay it. What are you talking about? Ted stammered. We discussed this, and my parents said it wasn't necessary to repay it. We're family. Family or not, we signed a loan agreement, I replied, my voice steady. It's unthinkable not to repay it. Our parents' money is important for their future. Just because we're family doesn't mean you can borrow money and not pay it back. Was your gratitude a lie? This is unacceptable to our parents who trusted you. Ted tried to argue. My father said not to worry about it. If we have more children, it would be hard to repay, so I thought it might be considered a gift. That's not how it works, my father said, his anger palpable. Even if that's true, I have no intention of giving a single penny to someone who has an affair with his wife's sister and abandons his own daughter and grandchild. Pay it back properly. Yumi, who had been listening silently, finally spoke up. I'm also a daughter. It shouldn't be a problem if I stay here. I'm not working right now, and I don't have the money. Be quiet, my father cut her off. You're no longer a daughter to me. You've always bullied Sarah, and now, as an adult, you're doing this. I'm cutting ties with you. They'll never show up again. My parents had long been aware of my sister's attitude, but her behavior had not changed one bit. Even as an adult, she still acted like a spoiled child. Since Yumi wasn't working and would struggle on her own, I decided to press for additional compensation. Since you're the reason for the divorce, you should pay me alimony for the mental distress. I'll have my lawyer contact you. Ted was left speechless, staring in shock. I grabbed my suitcases and walked out, my mother's tears stinging my eyes. Sarah, I'm so sorry for all this, she said, hugging me tightly. I never thought Yumi would go this far. I shouldn't have told her where you live. Mom, it's not your fault. Her nature can't be changed, I reassured her. It's refreshing to cut ties with her. I've also realized that Ted is just as self-centered as she is. I have no regrets now. I'm sorry for involving you, I said. Thank you for coming. I'll find a lawyer and make sure to recover the money. But for now, don't worry about the money. You and Maya come first. You must be exhausted today. Go pick up Maya, come back home, and rest. My mother nodded, her concern for me evident. Take care of yourself, she said. We'll handle this together. Feeling both mentally and physically exhausted, I decided to take a break at my parents' house. Their warm support was a comforting embrace during such a difficult time. I expressed my gratitude, telling them how much their encouragement meant to me. Their unwavering support gave me the strength to move forward. A few days later, I reached out to a lawyer who was a friend of my father's. I needed to address compensation for emotional distress, the repayment of the money my parents had loaned us, and of course, child support for Maya. Although I was concerned about the potential impact on my career, the news of my husband's affair with his sister-in-law and our impending divorce had quickly spread, leading to his social isolation. I took a leave of absence from work to handle the address change and other divorce-related tasks. Thankfully, since I had kept my maiden name at work, there was no need for a name change after the divorce, which was a relief. My husband called me once, accusing me of turning everyone against him. Did you talk to my boss? You must have painted me as the bad guy, he said. Well, I heard your boss's wife cheated on him, and now they're divorced. Maybe that's why your boss has been so tough on you. Do you finally understand how unreasonable you are and the trouble you cause others? After saying my piece, I hung up the phone. Later, I learned that my husband had quit his job. I was relieved not to have to see him anymore. With no job and having used our savings to buy a house, he and my sister were forced to sell the property. Fortunately, they found a buyer quickly and repaid the money they owed my parents sooner than expected. However, they still face alimony and child support payments. Finding a new job proved challenging for him at his age, and he and my sister ended up living with his parents. Yet she remained unchanged, still refusing to help with housework or seek employment, only indulging in her own desires. His parents, exhausted by the situation, eventually asked him to leave. After the divorce, my ex-in-laws came to apologize. I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony and satisfaction when they finally moved out. My sister had once come to my parents asking for money, but my father had scolded her so harshly that she never returned. She had lost her former charm and was now marked by poverty and an unhealthy lifestyle. My husband, who sought a divorce, found himself stuck with my sister, who clung to him out of spite rather than love. Their loveless and impoverished life was easy to imagine. I had planned to find a new home for my daughter and me, but my parents advised me to take my time. We lived with them for a while, and my daughter's smile gradually returned, surrounded by their love. Thanks to their support, I excelled at work and was appointed leader of a new department. "Mom, you're amazing. You work so hard. I want to be a great woman like you," my daughter said, which was the greatest reward for my efforts. With my daughter's love and my parents' support, I regained my confidence and vowed to keep striving to be a mother she could respect.